Evening. I call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. We have all of us here, Jack Nicolai, Steve Brown, myself, Dana Powers, Nick Poloni, and Ted Gergen. And we have all of our administration here. We have Connie Valenza, Mr. Guzman, Judy Mrachkowski, yes, Patty Fitzgerald, and Ryan Sandberg. Welcome, you guys. Visitors, please make sure that you've signed in. Can you guys hear me? No, am I? There we go. Sorry about that. Visitors, please make sure you've signed in by the door and then stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion on the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. I do not have anything to report at this time. The updates I have will be covered later on in the agenda. So we will go right on to the clerk's report.
Yes, the one thing I have is a report regarding the election that'll be coming up in the spring. There will be 2 3-year positions for election on the board for the 2022 spring election. These are the current seats held by Ted Gergen and myself, Steve Brown. The notice of the school board election was published in the Kenosha News and posted in the usual places prior to the November 23rd, 2021 deadline. The declaration of candidacy papers can be picked up in the district administration office between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. The declaration of candidacy papers must be returned to the district administration office by 5 p.m. on January 4th of 2022. The deadline for incumbents wishing to file notice of non-candidacy is 5 p.m. on December 24th, 2021. And finally, the date of the spring election is April 5th of 2022. If a primary is needed, and that's where there would be more than 4 people who submit their papers, if a primary is needed, the date of the spring primary election is February 15th of 2022.
Super.
So that's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Ted.
All right, let's take a look at the treasurer's report dated October 2021. General fund cash account with a balance of $388,597.42. Credit cards with a balance of $10,498.02. EBC Flex and HRA cash account with a balance of $6,275.40. Capital Improvement Fund or Fund 46 with a balance of $2,081,818.92. Petty cash of $200 and LGIP of $607,837.62 for a grand asset total for October 2021 of $3,095,227.38. To move to approve the treasurer's report dated October 2021 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
Take a look at the payment of accounts payable bills dated 10/23/21 through 11/22/21. This includes checks numbered 70612 through 70706, as well as 202-100-131 through 202-100-343. This includes a total for checks of $616,884.98. I'd like to move to approve the payment of accounts payable bills dated 10/23/21 through 11/22/21.
So moved.
Second, unless you want to hold off for a second.
We have a motion and a second, so if you have any questions, now would be a time. Nope. Jack, you good?
Nice to see Amazon's doing so well.
Crushing it.
No question.
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
We have the minutes of the regular school board meeting 10/26/2021 as printed and amended.
I motion to approve the minutes of the regular school board meeting dated 10/26/2021 as printed and or amended.
So moved.
Second. Jack, go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Public comments time. Nobody signed in at the front and nothing was submitted, so we will move right along here. Action items.
So the first action item on the agenda we have is our medical insurance. It is an annual renewal that comes due January 1. Last year, WPS had provided us a bid that would have increased our total health insurance package by 29%. For a total of $408,730. We, at the time, felt that that was not something that our budget could withstand, that amount of an increase. So we went out to bid and accepted a bid by UHC that actually provided for a decrease of $117,000. So a total difference of about $500,000. The employee contribution was dropped from 15% of the premium down to 10%, so it was kind of taking that additional money and giving it back to our staff. Unfortunately, this year, UHC is asking for a 40% increase. We thought 29% was crazy, so $561,000 due to high loss ratios, according to them. About 126% so far. In order to meet the district's approved 2021-2022 budget, as you know we did at the annual meeting, what was approved, the recommendation would have had to have been to increase the employee contribution to 20% just to come in where we were at budget-wise, and continue the 55% for our hourly employees. We did also make the decision, even though, it's clear that our staff would like some continuity when it comes to insurance, so it was a tough decision. But given the cost and then the additional cost to our employees, we really felt like we had to go out to bid to see if there was an option. So we went out to bid. Humana was the only provider that can provide adequate coverage with a similar plan design and at a significantly lower increase than UHC. No other provider could provide similar coverage at less than the UHC premium cost. So going forward, we met with staff, kind of shared with them the different plans. We asked the bids to come in with basically an apples to apples comparison as much as possible. So same deductibles, same HSA contribution, same coverage. One of the things that's really good about Humana is the large geographic area provider. So if you take a look at the top 10 providers under UHC, those are all matched and covered by Humana as well. One of the things that's kind of unique about Humana is they have a plan where if your employees participate in certain wellness activities, there's some benefits that go back to them. But there's also benefits that go back to the district. And they're also willing to agree to, if you will, a rate cap based on what our overall plan, kind of how much we spend or how much we use in healthcare costs, so that loss ratio. As you know, that loss ratio has been kind of an ongoing factor with us. Although we do believe, and Humana also believes, that we're looking at a better year ahead. So let's hope that that's the case. So you can see that they are willing to agree to a rate cap within whatever those loss ratios are. So if we have a very high loss ratio, again, they're not willing to commit, beyond a certain point. But we're hopeful that we're kind of through the worst of that. They have a lot of the different wellness benefits similar to what we had with UHC. So there are rewards for our employees for doing certain wellness activities and things like that. I think one of the things that's unique about Humana, though, is in addition to some of the incentives for employees to do wellness activities, there's actually incentives for the district if our employees do wellness activities. So in other words, based on the number of employees that are involved in some of those activities, it can accrue percentage points off of our next renewal. So for example, if we have 50 of our employees reach a certain level, and then another 15 reach another level under their plan, that would be a 5% reduction in our overall premium increase. Now, we likely won't hit that the first year, but the concept of having a reduction in our overall premium increase would be really nice. When Humana took a look at kind of our loss ratio and in the situations as they were occurring, they believed that this year we would have come in more around an 8 to 10% loss, or an 8 to 10% increase, instead of obviously the 40%. Now, obviously they're looking to get business, but there was no other bidder. So it really would have been an option of staying with UHC and the 40% increase, or going to Humana. It was put out to a real large network, and nobody else was interested in us.
Connie, in the past, we've talked at our board meetings about the fact that our insurance is from January 1st to December 31st. And obviously, that's how it is. If in the future we ever wanted to look at changing that, what's involved in that?
So it would be pretty expensive. We actually talked about doing it this year. We just tried to kind of get a feel for it. What's very complicated is we have pretty high deductibles, and then we have the HSA. So the only way to really do it would be to do like a 6-month plan and then move into a year. The vast majority of districts go July 1 to July 1. The problem would be, what do you do with the deductible? Do you have families now that have a deductible and then 6 months later have another deductible to satisfy? How do you handle the HSA in terms of providing that? That might be a little bit easier because you could break it into 6-month increments, but the deductible creates kind of a challenge. We talked with them about, what it would cost, for example, if we were to pick up that, the additional deductible for our employees. And there was the thought that it probably would be somewhere in that maybe 170 to 230 range thousand. And we really felt that that was not a legitimate use of our budget at this point to just get us on that. It's inconvenient, there's no question, the January to January, but to spend that kind of money just to kind of address a inconvenience when we're looking at potentially going out to referendum for operating wasn't probably a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The idea set about wellness decreasing premium for, the insured, this being the school district, it's a very common thing that we see in business insurance. Well, this is health insurance, obviously. And I know a lot of businesses, in relation to their employees, are very demanding of making sure people participate in this, because that's, if you get 90% participation or 95% participation, that's fantastic real money that could be used to save them money in the future. So one thing that I do know, especially with M3 and as large as they are, we got to make sure as a district that we're utilizing their functionality to the fullest extent, in making sure that our staff understands what qualifying events, and being frequent about it, because that's true savings for the district for sure.
Yeah, M3 is the largest school insurance provider broker in the state of Wisconsin. They do have different things that they offer, but also they have, in terms of when you go out to bid, they probably have about the largest reach in terms of having people make a decision to put in a bid for insurance. So that's where we kind of came back from. It has a pretty significant renewal cost impact. If we went with, let's say we stayed with UHC, and even by increasing our employees' premiums up to that 20% from the 10%, so a real significant financial impact for our employees, the district increase would be about $304,000 plus. By switching to Humana, there's a little bit of an increase for employees, but not a hugely significant amount. And the district increase is actually less as well, about $205,000 of an increase. The district with, sorry about that. If the district went with UHC, we'd be at about $304,000 increase. If we went with Humana, it drops that by about $100,000. It's still an increase for the district from where we're at this year by about $205,000. But the real significant change is for what our employees would pay under that scenario. If we were to stay with UHC, the employee contribution would be about pretty close to $250,000 of an increase. And then if we were to go with Humana, it's only about a $22,000 increase for all of our employees across the pool. So pretty significant difference that way. I did put out a survey to our staff. Didn't get a lot of participation, but I think a lot of our staff just kind of felt like it was probably a done deal. We only had 18 respond, but all of them chose Humana for us to make that move to Humana. So at this point, I guess I would be looking for a motion from the board as to whether we would look to make the change or stay with UHC.
I motion that the district move its healthcare plan to Humana from UHC for the 2022-2023 year.
2022 calendar year.
2022 calendar year to 2023 for the upcoming renewal.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Then within our employee handbook, we have provided a health savings account for our employees, the HSA amount, and the way in which we work that, there's some logistics around doing that in terms of legalities, but the district has approved a benefit not to exceed $2,000 for a single health insurance enrollee and $4,000 for a family in one calendar year. The deposits begin in January in the year after the employee begins working for the district, and then the employee may make additional HSA payments through payroll. The recommendation would be to set the HSA amounts for eligible employees at $2,000 for a single and $4,000 for the +1 in family. And the reason I'm making that recommendation is that that's what the bid was based on. So when companies make bids, they look at both deductible and what that HSA contribution is then towards the deductible, and that's what our bid was at. So that would be the recommendation to continue.
Motion to set the HSA amounts for eligible employees at $2,000 for single and $4,000 +1 and family.
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
The last insurance we have to discuss is the district has provided a $5,000 waiver to our full-time employees if they choose not to participate in our insurance plan. You could see in at least a couple of the comments, there was couple comments about maybe that was too much, maybe it was causing too many of our employees to choose to waiver our insurance, especially our healthy employees, which might potentially be driving some of that loss ratio or some of the concern for renewal. But in any event, we've always, at this same meeting that we've set the others, we've also set what the waiver amount was. This last year, it was at $5,000.
How many, I'm sorry, should we take a?
I was going to ask the same question.
In the past, how many employees have actually put this waiver into effect?
I thought you were going to ask that question, so I asked Marquez to look it up.
Yeah, so last year for the 2021 school year, we had 51 employees take the waiver of health insurance.
It's a pretty significant amount, and for good reason, but also the larger the pool of people taking insurance, the better rate, and the more likely you're going to be to get a better rate. And it's also possible, as I said, that waiver could be pushing some of our healthier employees to choose the waiver instead.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision whenever you take what is perceived to be somewhat of a benefit away. However, how health insurance is, and again, I'm not licensed in that, but I understand it really well, is there's a lot of companies that are going, if you have an eligible healthcare plan with your spouse that you're not on, they will actually charge you if you jump on that insurance plan, right? So there's a lot of companies that are just straight up charging you, not even giving you the benefit of the doubt, right? So I think with how our insurance costs are raising, we have to keep that in consideration for not just the people who are purchasing it that have to pay more, but for the people who are getting the benefit of not taking it, we have to kind of consider that in lieu as well, I think. So I think it's as unpopular as that tends to be, especially with 51 people that have taken it last year, there's got to be some concession when we have some driving cost, right?
I think additionally, there's the idea of single versus the +1 and family, right? Like, so is that 5,000 the same if you're taking single coverage versus the +1 and family? Like, there's that as well. Like, where's that balance of those plans?
So is there a recommendation of where we feel like there's a impactful amount of changing it to?
I guess I would say that this is a difficult time to make a change. CPI is, obviously inflation is difficult for families and health costs have gone up. I think that some of the comments in the survey were at least to kind of, maybe it's something that we think about and maybe it's something that we don't continue to increase over time. But I'm reluctant to say, I understand the impact it has on our insurance. Mid-year, I don't think you're going to see a big change in terms of the number of people who would opt out. So there is a little piece of me that says mid-year, moving to a new insurance company, maybe this is a change that we don't need to make at this point, but looking down the road, maybe that's something that either we look to pare back so that there's plenty of notice for employees. They're not there's time for them to think about the impact that would have.
Except though, the impact that we're talking about, we also need to include in that mix of discussion is that we still have the current January 1st to December 31st, so that's not an issue. But is there any, as 51 people at $5,000, that's a lot of money, especially when we're looking at what the insurance was going to be before we just voted to go with Humana. And if we're looking at issues potentially of the referendum, I would like us to think about a smaller number, a smaller dollar amount.
There's not a possibility of doing that, though.
Why not?
For September.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Right? Like, because your insurance plan is
Through
January
the contracted
to
year, right?
December, so you can, I don't know
That's
when
what
there would be a good time to.
It's like a year and a half plan out type of thing at this
However,
point.
you could,
Right.
you could make the decision on the waiver. There's nothing to prevent you from making the decision about the waiver. It just doesn't take effect until the January, so that you've given employees time to budget in that actual school year. And again, it's a tough one to say, because as much as $5,000 is expensive, the district contribution to family health insurance is what, about 20?
It's about 20,000.
Is it a stipend check or is it added into their salary for the year?
They have the
Goes into the
option
403B as well.
Is it? Yeah.
in terms of, it is taxable, but they have the option of whether they want tax taken out of it or whether they want tax not taken out of it.
We also do it over 2 payments, one in January and one in May. And if they do hop on the insurance, then we prorate it as well.
I'll say with the exception of last year, obviously, the years prior, since I've been on the board, I think it's been an increase almost every single year, minus the one year we switched agents. Well, it really was, that was a 7%, I believe, at 11. We've probably taken upon 35-40% increase from 6 years ago overall, and that stipend stay the same. I would say in consideration of what the max amount of Humana could be as far as our loss ratio at 25% increase year over year, I think it'd be fair in assumption to say that maybe we reduce it by 25% in a counterbalance to the insurance renewal, because it's a pure benefit compared to the utilization of the health insurance model is the way I'm looking at it, right? So the people who take the health insurance are brunting the entire bearance of that increase, obviously because they're using it, but I just think if we're thinking about how to be strategic, you know, and it's a terribly tough decision to make, but I mean, if you take 25% out of that, it offsets a little bit of our, you know, and it's not a 50% reduction, it's not a $2,000 or $3,000 reduction, or, you know, but
So a 25% reduction would lower it down to $3,750.
still a pretty fair amount. And I know other districts in the area for what they provide, you know, it's not as rich in some cases from what I understand either. And actually our HSA amounts that we just approved are higher than districts in our area too, that I know of as well. So, I mean, we have a pretty rich insurance plan considering the increases that we've been taking year over year. Just from general knowledge point that I have.
Again, I also think there's value in looking at single versus family or single. Like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe,
there's that as well.
maybe we could reduce the single, you know.
Because if you're single,
I
you
think
can't
when you-
take anybody
premiums
else's
are lower.
insurance.
Talking a
Yeah.
waiver, though, it wouldn't be different from single to family.
Right.
I mean, the
You
waiver.
could still have a family,
coverage
but yeah,
would
I
be
get
the
you.
same,
Yeah, you're right.
regardless. I do think, I mean, so the one thing I will say is that although we've seen some significant increases in health insurance, in the 3 years that I've been here, our health insurance has actually gone up very little. The first year we had that 12%, but then the next year we actually went down, so our employees got some savings last year in their premiums, and then going forward this year, it'll be still fairly level. So by going out to bid, which has created some disruption, we've saved the district pretty significantly and our employees pretty significantly over the last couple of years.
Was I hearing correctly with that one of the problems with this might be that would be happening in January instead of September? But aren't we kind of locked into that anyway?
Well, we are yes, for now, unless we wanted to make a decision to put money aside to break out of that cycle. And my recommendation would be right now, as we're looking at potentially having to pass a referendum and everything else, not to do that this year. But you could still, like I said, like let's say you were going to do the change next year, giving them plenty of notice that that change was going to take place, you could make the decision in, say, July or whatever, so that they at least knew it was coming. I think the one, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I'm guessing that our employees have kind of built their budgets based on that waiver amount.
Adjust.
Well-
Because it's built into it's hard to adjust that in the middle of the year, right? Like it's part of your plan, your salary. So what would it look like if we were to come back,
Before contracts get assigned.
So I think what you would do is so the employee handbook, remember, can be changed at any time. So my recommendation would be, I guess, if you're thinking about reducing it and you're concerned about the impact on staff that may not have budgeted for it, you could, in the employee handbook yet this spring, make a decision for the renewal that's in 2023, that amount is reduced. And that gives employees an opportunity to plan for and budget for that change.
And if, I'm sorry, Jack. go on.
It sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
So if we did something like that and actually put it if we were to make a change for the calendar, I mean, currently, the calendar year of 2023, from January 1st to December 31st, we can still, between now and July, decide if we're going to look at changing the whole flow with regards to insurance. That would take all of this into impact as well, right?
Do you know the percentage that takes the TSA versus the cash? Do you have that breakdown?
It's very few people, I think maybe 2 or 3
That take
people.
the TSA? Interesting, okay.
And
And then how typical is it for schools to do both the HSA and a waiver?
So I think that it was, at the time, strategic. I would say the combination of the high deductible and the HSA is pretty typical. I think fewer and fewer districts are doing the waivers or the high, especially the high amount for a waiver. I think you're seeing less of that. I think it still exists because, again, districts have had it, so it's difficult to take it away. But typically, whenever you have a high deductible insurance plan, you would then come back through with an HSA for employees. Most districts have that combination.
My previous district actually had an HRA component, and employees, in order to qualify for the HRA, also had to complete a questionnaire annually and do a health assessment. And additionally, the HRA was only based on reimbursements, so if you didn't use it, you didn't get it as well. Whereas the HSA is like guaranteed money. The HRA was
Yeah, we
just
used
based.
to have that here because, yeah, Diversified is the one that handles it typically in Wisconsin. But I mean, that was 4 years ago. Maybe we had the HRA. So
I guess I also want to add that, a little too far away, that having the health insurance renewal in January also is a challenge for budgeting because, when we pass the budget, we don't know what our renewal rate is going to be. So we have to estimate, and if we do get a significant insurance increase, we could end up getting burned and not having enough budgeted, which kind of what happened this year, and then we had to go out to bid, and if Humana wouldn't have come in, we would have we would have had to make some decisions midway through the year after the budget's already been passed. So
should we say that we review this closer to, the maybe 2 board meetings prior to contracts being sent out type of situation? Because, I mean,
April?
yeah, so if we're sending,
Well,
I'm just saying that just because,
I mean, at that point, people ultimately then should, I think it's fair to give people information related to what the benefits are when they sign their contract.
correct.
And
Yeah.
so, although again, this can change, obviously, we wouldn't be doing it at this point in the year if we couldn't, but it does give people a little bit of a heads up and an opportunity to budget. So I would say at a minimum, the decision, I think, would be helpful for our employees in terms of when they have to get their contracts back in, which is June,
yep,
kind of in that June
first
world.
week of June. Yeah.
So making some sort of a decision prior to that.
Could we table this to next meeting then so we can come in with some ideas?
The actual,
Motion of if we're setting what the waiver amount would be? Is
I
it,
think we have to set it for
January?
this
do we?
calendar year.
Oh, leave it.
if you were going to change it, it would be best.
If we were changing it, it'd be for 23.
I thought it was for a contract year because it's a benefit that we pay as a district.
It'd be for the calendar year.
For the calendar year.
Okay.
So even though, like,
You can't, I don't think we can split it over.
So if I hear what you're saying to Connie and Marcus, that we should, that keeping it the way it is now, review it again prior to when contracts have to be in, which means sometime our February, March, April meetings, or even before that, right?
or, I mean, I think you could go into May as well. But I would say, I think for our employees that are counting on that, which it starts getting paid out in
Typically,
January.
yes.
January.
January.
I think it would be appreciated to have it maintain the same this year and then given plenty of notice going into the next year.
That makes sense.
But what if next year we end up in a situation where we're 40% increase again? And we've made this decision in April. Like, how does that, because right now we're tying this to the negotiations of insurance plans, right? Like, if we end up in another situation where somebody's coming back 20%, 30%, 40%, where does that leave us? Because we've made a motion in June for something that we have no idea what it's gonna look like.
It's kind of the problem that we have though, right?
Right.
That's part of the problem.
I mean, that is the problem with the January 1
Well,
renewal.
and that's why we have been discussing, around this whole thing about at some point changing when insurance goes into effect from calendar year to fiscal year.
Feels like we're chasing our tails a little bit.
I mean, it is, as you said, it's very difficult to budget for. I don't know if, how we got on that, if it's always been on the January renewal and just never got shifted over like a lot of districts did.
It was in October at one point and it got pushed to January. Yeah.
Well, there is one thing that we can think about here, since we kind of set policy. If,
Mike, look at it.
Hello.
we set policy, we decide which direction we'd like the school to move towards. And if we do make a motion to accept this $5,000, but to plan to revisit it in April, and if in April we decide we'd like to lower it to half, 2,500, and then November rolls around and we realize, well, that's not a good idea, we can always revote that.
But then people have to the same conversation right now, people have planned their, based on their salary, these benefits, I'll loosely say, right? You've planned on getting $5,000 back because you didn't take insurance.
Yeah.
I feel like it's unfair for us to make a decision in the middle of the year to say, whoa, you're only gonna get 2,500 now, and who even knows how we do that?
But if we present that before they actually get their contracts, then they know that it's a possibility. Then if we have to turn around and take it back to 5,000, they'll go, whoopee.
Because it'd be a 1.5 year transition at this point, considering we're halfway through. Yeah, it'd be a 1.5 year transition. Because what they got this year, plus they have to elect currently right now, if we don't make a motion on any of that, it wouldn't come into effect, like we're saying, until the 2023 school year. So there's a 1.5 year buffer of that change happening. If we do kind of what you're suggesting, which I'm not actually against by any means, it doesn't necessarily help us in the immediate right now. However, it will set a kind of a longer term precedence that, hey, regardless, we have to make some movement on this. And I know it's a little bit tighter on the budget, it's an area that we could help ourselves out a little bit, but with the idea of keeping people budgeted the way that they expect to be budgeted, because I think that's important too. This gives kind of a sunset date to a degree and still allows people to retain that benefit for the next 1.5 years.
So either way, what I'm hearing is we're looking at 5,000 for the 2022 school year, and then we're gonna revisit it as a board at some point in the early spring.
I think so.
Right?
yeah.
That's how I'm feeling.
Okay.
So that'd be the motion.
And maybe there'll be some other
Sure.
creative benefits that we can think through between now and then about what 403Bs look like, what
Yeah.
TSAs might look like, there are probably creative ways to offer benefits that maybe aren't as
That aren't strict.
costly, but benefit the employees as well.
Right, and still work into that mix, looking at changing it to the fiscal year in addition. So.
Whatever the options are,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So I motion that we revisit this in April?
April.
We have to approve this.
Or do we need a
We need to
motion on
approve the
that?
5,000 this year, the 2022 school.
Oh,
Pull
okay.
it together, can't you? I mean, I move to set the waiver at 5,000 as presented and continue the discussion on this with the possibility of changing in April.
Is that a motion?
It is.
I second it. I'm sorry, Madam President.
Real quick, though,
that-
this is policy language, though, isn't it?
I thought it was
Or
Did you say it was
handbook?
handbook?
If it's already written in the handbook, we don't need to, it's already in
It's
there,
already in
correct?
there, is this?
So the motion would technically be then to revisit in April.
Do we need a motion to revisit?
Or we could suggest to put it,
I would say, we've always taken board action every year on that. I don't know that we need to, but I think to set the amount, we've done it for multiple years.
all right, we'll go with Jack's motion then. Sorry, Diane.
Do we need it restated with?
I think it's good.
Stated, I move to set the waiver at $5,000 as presented and move to revisit this in April.
Perfect. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries?
So So due to the onset of the pandemic in the spring of 2020, the board had decided that providing the district with some continuity of leadership through that wonderful time was important. So requested and approved a 2-year contract with myself, at that time interim district administrator. I do want to share that I did at the time say it would only be for the 2 years. And only to assist the district through the pandemic with the stated intent of leaving at the end of 2021, 2022. And I say that because I want to be clear, I have loved my time here in Salem. There's nothing about this district that would make me want to leave this district other than I'm really old and my grandkids are growing up super fast. But I wanted to be clear that it has nothing to do with the district. I have had a wonderful experience here, and it's a wonderful district, and your next superintendent will be very lucky to come, so.
I honestly believe we would not have been able to do this without you. You were absolutely amazing. And we're so sorry to see you leave, but
You're a treasure.
so supportive of you. And we're gonna hold you to helping our new person too.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And just to make sure this is perfectly clear for everyone, she will be here the rest of this school year. So don't panic. Motion? Oh,
I can't.
you can, oh, you're not gonna panic?
No.
I move to approve the resignation of Dr. Connie Valenza, District Administrator, effective June 30th of 2022, and I make that with regrets.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. We already miss you, Connie.
I miss you as well. I'm missing the stress, but. So with that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that you had this information to act on was so that you had plenty of time to get out and get a high-quality candidate. So I know that you've done some kind of legwork on that already.
So do you guys remember Dan? Our buddy Dan. So I reached out to him several weeks ago, and it took us until this morning to finally touch base. He's a pretty busy guy. But I have a number of dates that let me back up. We are right on track. I had bookmarked in that I needed to contact him either November or December, so we were right on track. And the first step is for the board and Connie to meet with Dan and go through just the planning and set the schedule, which we've done once before. So it's really just revising that.
Connie, is this gonna be like the same way? Like, we're gonna go through all this and you're gonna be like, hey, just kidding, I wanna
Which
stick
is
around.
totally
It's
fine.
cool with us
I
if we
am
go through that way.
Happy to do that.
Yeah,
Just
no,
save us the, no? All right.
sorry.
So we ought to have that meeting in December. I have a number of dates then, or very early January. So we can't go much past early January, but understood if we can't find a date in December. I have a number, like I said, I have a number of dates that work for him, so I can email those and then just let me know your top 3. And then I'd like to get that scheduled and even have a backup, especially if we set one in December, we could have a backup in January. It's to the point where if we start missing those meetings and those benchmarks, then.
Right, and our December meeting is still for the 21st, our regular board meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't have the dates on me, I left them at home. But I can, like I said, I'll email them to you, and then we'll keep with, we still want to do the focus groups, and we still want to do the teacher, all of those groups, and all of those things will still be in place, unless at that particular meeting we decide we want to remove one of them for sake of time or anything else. So we'll go through all that with Dan. And that's it. He's going to take good care of us. One thing, Connie, if you know of anyone, he mentioned that maybe with your discussions with people, if you have people that you're aware of, obviously let me know too.
Maybe a twin.
What's that?
Maybe a twin.
A twin? Yeah. Do you have an unknown twin somewhere?
I will see what I can find.
That'd be great.
And just to bring it up, and I know it's been a very touchy thing to bring up in the years past, and we're at a point where maybe it's okay to talk about a joining of district situation at all. I know that's a really seemed to be taboo thing to bring up in the western part of Kenosha County here, but I know there's been a lot of discussion in the years past about, you know, in my mind, I can't help but to think that that makes some sense. And I know that we're going through this process, and I know it's just something that I wanted to throw out there during a regular scheduled board meeting. And I think there is some thought process that could be beneficial, truly. And I don't know where that road could take us, or even just kind of how we generate that thought process and idea. Because I know it's often been brought up, not only just by board members talking with, you know, people in the community, but I mean, widely across the nation, we're seeing this as not only a benefit for health insurance purposes, shared staffing resources, building facility usage, administrative cost reduction to some degree, and really overall just kind of being able to utilize a group in an area better rather than pinpointed. And I know each district in this county definitely has its purpose for being independent, and we could probably go through each one of those and probably know the answers to each one of those, but just throwing that out there. I think, I know it's, and I'm only bringing that up because we're gonna be going through this this process.
It's a big process.
And related to that, I lived in Iowa for several years, and in the state of Iowa, the state legislature, a number of years ago, voted to force school districts to consolidate because there were high schools with 300 students or less and a graduating class of 14. Crazy stuff like that. Yep. So I know at least that's been discussed off and on over the years here in Wisconsin at the state level, but.
And I wouldn't even bring it up, except every single person I've ever talked to about it has said, why haven't you brought it up? Yeah. Literally every person I've ever talked to, almost, minus like a handful probably.
Deke makes an
My
important point.
recommendation, though,
He
would be
talks
to
about enrollment, and I think enrollment is something to do with the size of the administration. I know there are two Racine County schools that have decided to go to part-time administrators, and they share an administrator across the buildings. They've got 400 to 500 kids per school. I mean, you look at the size of our school, I have a hard time thinking about having a part-time administrator or merging with someone else.
One of the things I would say is I would talk with WASB and see about the process of consolidation. I think there's consolidation and then there's sharing a district administrator. The sharing of a district administrator can be somewhat difficult. Just to give you an example, we're an open enrollment state, so now you've got two districts that are tentatively in competition with each other for students. I think it can be challenging under those circumstances, not impossible. Many districts have talked about the concept of part-time administrators. I'm probably one of the very few with a district this size because I'm 80%, I think. To be honest with you, without having a fair amount of experience and being comfortable, being able to, and having an outstanding administrative team, I think it could be difficult to go with a part-time administrator in a district this size. Yeah. But again, those would be things that I think, to me, WASB is much more familiar with the state and where those kind of situations might exist. And so Dan might be a great resource for you to have that conversation.
Yeah, and as we all know, I think, Nick, what you say is absolutely true in that in the past, I've lived here in the community for 19 years. I've heard, even when I was on the board in 03 and 04, discussions that we have two outstanding high schools. We have all the elementary districts that feed into both of our outstanding high schools. But, to talk about it and to do it and to get voters to vote for it, that's a whole different, ball of wax, and we all know that. So.
Well, Nick, thanks for bringing it up, though.
Yeah.
It's just something I've failed to bring up, I feel like, for 6 years. And it might be a good time to bring that up, so I don't know.
I will reach out to Dan And maybe he could have somebody come to a meeting or something along those lines.
I think it's just worth checking in and
absolutely.
seeing the impact of what that could mean.
No, I'm happy to do that. Great.
And the next information item I have, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, we held 4 different facility family focus groups. I sent out to all of our parents, inviting them, trying to induce them with the excitement of an in-depth tour of every corner of the building. And we had 29 different family members, and it was kind of fun. I mean, to be able to go through the building and get people's perspectives and kind of feel like, you know, they had a little more information, and I felt like I had some good information. We sent them a follow-up survey to get some of their thoughts. I sent another kind of reminder today because I think it was really valuable. They really had an opportunity to kind of understand a little bit about how we operated. I think we actually have someone in the crowd tonight that went with us on the I don't know, what you think? Was it valuable?
3-hour tour.
Very valuable, greatly appreciated.
Yeah. I mean, so I wish we could have had more people actually go than we did, but I was excited to have the 29. So we're kind of at that, I mean, we're going to have to move pretty rapidly now in moving forward with what that next step is. But one of the things I wanted to do was to invite that group back to meet with our Building and Grounds Committee, just to, in a more informal kind of conversation around what they think about what they saw and what they'd like to see us go forward with. I will tell you today, I did a pop-up focus group with the 6th graders on recess about what they'd like to see on a playground, and it was actually pretty fun. They had some really good ideas, but I will tell you right now that our architect needs to design a Gaga pit. They would like to see tetherball and more Foursquare for our 6th through 8th graders on the playground out there.
What was the first thing you mentioned?
Gaga pit.
I don't know.
It's like the big octagon wooden.
Kids got to throw
hit the-
balls
they
in
hit the
ball
short
around the
distance
inside. I
without
seen
getting
those.
hit in there.
It's
So
like
it's pretty
dodgeball,
safe,
but-
so I felt pretty good about it. So, you know, I think we had said these next couple weeks would be kind of crunch time to really kind of still get people's ideas and thoughts. I'd like to send something maybe to the west of the eye to see if there's actual people that don't have kids in our district that might be interested in coming in and kind of going through the building and sharing a little bit of their thoughts. You've gotten some thoughts from staff. We did some kind of surveying of staff. But those are kind of some pieces in the middle of everything else you have to do that I'd like to kind of see us go forward with, knowing that, you know, if we're going to do something from a referendum perspective, that 1/25 is going to be the deadline. So
Who's Buildings and Grounds? Is it Nick and Jack? Are you Buildings?
I thought it was Nick and Jack.
Yeah, we're Buildings and Grounds.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I know I was in it, so.
How's your December?
Well, yeah, we just need a couple, it's gonna be more dependent probably on the community rather than my schedule per se, I will say. So I'll try to work around that, because getting 20 plus or more families together,
That would be one, and then also if we're able to pull together like another community one, you know, anybody who wanted to participate in that
Yeah.
with me could, but I think that would be good. And then I guess I would say, you know, to probably think about an early January kind of workshop format to finalize, and maybe even invite like the architect and the ones that did the facility study to try and kind of narrow that down. We'll have to, just dates coming up, obviously we can set that in our December meeting, but,
that's fine.
okay. So on to administrator reports.
All right. So as you guys, or as you know, the school district has an annual audit each, at the end of each fiscal year. We do ours in August. And with ESSER 1, the federal money coming in related to the pandemic and increased breakfast and lunch participation through the summer food service program, we received over $750,000 in federal revenue. And when a district receives more than $750,000 in federal revenue, they have to do an additional federal single audit. So it was the first time, at least in going back through the years, the first time that we qualified for one. It was due to those 2 boosts in federal revenue. So last Wednesday, when there was no school and very few people were here, I actually did that audit with the auditors. I thought it would be a good time to do it since it would be pretty quiet. And so they pick one federal kind of area to look at, and they picked our food service. So I had to provide them with invoices and claims and all that kind of information. And so that was as part of that single audit requirement. And so that was the last piece of it. And then they have to submit their audited financial statements to DPI and to us in a few weeks on December 15th. And so I just wanted to let you know that even though the majority of the audit was wrapped up in August, we did have this final piece that we completed last week. So, and then additionally, even though we operate on a fiscal year from July through June, there are some calendar year year-end items that we have to do. There's a Medicaid cost report that is due at the end of each calendar year. We have W-2s coming out, 1099s, the health insurance, all the switching with that, figuring out all the payments for the waivers and the HSAs and all that. And then soon enough, we will start looking at just some preliminary budget preparation with using our Baird budget forecast model. So plugging in kind of states, revenue limits, updates, enrollment projections, things like that. And we'll bring that back to you in the early part of 2022. And then additionally, cash flow management is a thing right now. We're kind of at our low point with revenue. We do have a state aid payment coming next Monday, which will give us a little boost. And then finally in January, we get the property tax payments starting to come in. So just it's one of those things that I'm having to manage and making sure that we have enough cash to pay our bills, pay payroll, things like that. But we're doing fine. So.
One quick question while I saw that, Medicare, Medicaid, do we have any staff members that qualify for 65 and older that are currently in our health plan?
I don't believe we do at this year anymore.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Just as a thought process moving forward as a cost reduction for health insurance as well.
Yeah, and this Medicaid cost report is related to special education services that we provide.
Right, and that, right, totally. I
Okay.
just, yeah, because they get disability payment and such like that, and yeah, that's part of that too. That, yep.
Hi, Patty.
So there were a lot of heavy topics on our agenda today, so I wanted to share the best part of my day.
Good.
One of the bright spots, I think it's important that we're finding the joy every day, so I started asking for staff members to nominate students example here. So each day I pick someone who's been nominated and they get their picture taken in front of our sign that's right outside the door here. And then we make a phone call home. Yes, so being kind is the new highlight of my day. So just wanted to share that little bright spot.
Awesome, thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
My dad never got used to that call from the principal.
Right.
And anybody watching, your community members, if you're not like on the Instagram or Facebook page, this is all there.
Yep.
I highly
So
recommend get on there because
That's
it's
Nick-
a
that's
great
Nick-
way to end the day when you see these things pop up.
She's doing amazing. It's really good.
Facebook is amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. Hi, Ryan.
Good. I just want to kind of give a quick update of ARC in 6th grade and how things are going with that. So right now they're on Unit 2. There are 4 units throughout the course of the year. Right now they're on Unit 2. And the nice thing about ARC this year and what we're kind of doing, even like last year, they're getting that ongoing professional development. So the trainer, they've already had 3 trainings this year. They're going to have another 3. And how we kind of space those out is basically each unit, it's about approximately a quarter long. So we have that trainer coming in usually 1 or 2 times during each quarter to kind of help them work through those different things, answer different questions with those teachers. Multiple times, they've already been in twice this year. She actually comes in to kind of watch them, those teachers, Miss Brown, and just these work with those students to kind of help them and give them suggestions on how they can kind of improve. The trainer said they're doing a great job, and it really helps, obviously, when the 6th grade team are really passionate about getting ARC to begin with, and they're really happy with it. Right now, they're working in their geology unit right now, and they're really excited about that, and the big project. And so by the end of this, hopefully it'll be, I can show you by January, they're gonna actually have a book on some sort of geology, whether it's on rocks, whether it's on volcanoes, or whether it's on tsunamis. And so they're really excited about that. And so I kind of wanted to highlight that. And so like I said, next year then for ARC, we'll kind of move that along to 7th grade and the following year with 8th grade. So that first year when we brought it in last year, that 5th grade group will now have ARC throughout the rest of middle school. So it's been great in 6th grade. Like I said, the team's really excited about it. 7th grade teachers are really excited about it, already kind of looking forward to it for next year too. Another big celebration I want to talk about briefly too is Student Senate, kind of what that oversees Mrs. Fuller. The Thanksgiving food drive raised almost 4,000 items, which is absolutely incredible. It was like 3,900 pounds of food. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to obviously everyone who donated that. Obviously the Student Senate team and Ms. Fuller kind of oversaw that, but obviously that's helped with the entire school, all the parents and the students. And so like, even kind of from hearing about it from parents in the hallway, because they saw it on Facebook, they were so excited. We got 4,000 items donated to the Sharing Center. So just a really cool thing to highlight. So thank you.
Thank
you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
One of the most exciting things that you'll hear about tonight is the IDEA Federal Accountability Report Card. We've talked about it a couple different times. There's several different areas that you see on the screen there that's assessed, and we report out on that data. I just wanted to give you a couple updates on 2 of those areas. So the very first one that we've been really working on is the educational environments for ages 3 through 5. And I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the early childhood team members who are working really hard in this area. So instead of having the traditional early childhood classroom, we're really reaching out into the community and servicing those students in the daycare programs that they would have typically gone to if they were a student without a disability. So we've been partnering with Joyce's Preschool, a couple other area preschools, and West Osha Head Start. And so now our service providers are going into those daycare opportunities to provide those services. And so not only does it benefit those students who needed the services, but obviously it builds the capacity of the other providers too. So we've been really excited about developing some new partnerships with those students and bringing those services from the special education setting into the general education setting, which was one of our goals. And the other area that I wanted to highlight and give a shout out to is in our forward exam participation. You can see there in 18-19, 12% of our students with disabilities were not tested. We didn't obviously test last year, or the year before that, but going into the 2021 school year, we had 7% of our students with disabilities not tested in the area of ELA and 8.1 in the area of math. So I mean, it's a great improvement. And again, just a shout out to all of the special education teachers, the administrators, the classroom teachers, trying to bring students in from the virtual setting to make sure that all of our students went tested. It took a huge team effort. And again, I just wanted to really recognize the effort of everybody to make sure that all of our students are participating in those exams.
So not only to recognize them, but to recognize the leadership. Many districts, because of the pandemic, saw their exam participation go down, and it would have been very understandable if you think about the large number of students who are on virtual and that. So if you look at some of your larger districts, the overall percentage of testing was really low. So kudos to the work that Judith did with her staff. The fact that we've actually improved in that area in a pandemic year is really incredible. So thank you for your work on that as well.
Thanks, Judy.
All right, so we don't have any committee reports, but I do have a request to schedule a couple different committee meetings. One would be Building and Grounds. We talked about that already, so I'll send out some dates. The other would be, it is now that we've resolved health insurance is the time then to negotiate once we've determined that aspect of our budget. So we would send out a request to begin negotiations, and that has typically been the Personnel Committee as well. So I would have to get some feedback from our union in terms of, you know, what are some dates that they're able to do that, but just making sure that's on your radar. That is, I think, Ted and Dana.
Yes, and we need to do that in December? Yeah, okay.
And sooner rather than later.
Why don't you get some dates together and then my December is relatively open.
Yeah, a couple days it won't work.
Okay.
Do you want me to send those to you first?
First, I gotta hear back from the union. So,
Sounds great.
okay. So then upcoming board meeting, December, regular board meeting, Tuesday, December 21st. Some committee meetings in between there, but December 21st at 7 p.m. My thought would be we could probably move back into the LGI. It seems like we can probably accomplish that unless something changes, and I think they actually need this, the gym that night. So we'll kind of tentatively look to shifting back into the LGI.
Dan, is it really difficult to do this? Do you prefer doing the LGI? Or don't you care?
It makes no
Or
difference.
Steve, okay.
This was nice that it was all set up. We just opened the curtain, but the stage will be used for other things, so
Okay.
we have to tear it down anyway.
Okay, great. Great, I move to adjourn the meeting at 8:06.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and we are adjourned.
You get stereo
Thanks, guys.
seconds.